by the way, that it is, what is today? September the 16th.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I'm like, man, this morning when I was doing my daily, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. It's already the middle of September. David, hi, I'm on the other side of the office. See you in a few. Okay, guys, so I am going to get started as everybody is hopping on. So I really have been working very hard to practice my gratefuls and my gratitude. And so I want to keep our flow going with you guys. And I like to see what your guys' are too. So one thing in the chat that you are grateful for today, and mine is that it was 55 degrees this morning. I love the fall weather. I don't want it to stay 55 all day, but I like to feel it in the morning, a little bit fall-like. So what is one thing, and maybe really think about it for a minute. What's one thing you are specifically grateful for today? Oh, Stephanie, great. Yeah, I learned a ton yesterday too. I knew that would be a couple of your all's responses. Oh, Jennifer, that's great. That's always a good thing. Awesome. Okay, I want to see what else you guys are grateful for specifically today. And then we're going to go a little fast. Oh, that's awesome, David. First time in a long time. Yep. Oh, thank you, Katie. Very grateful for you too. I just love like this, doing this every week. Honestly, I can't believe this is week 26, which is like crazy. Can you guys even believe we've made it through a pandemic for 26 weeks? Yes, Dawn, I am too. Talisha, love it. Yep, up and walking again. Dawn, I didn't know you weren't walking, so I'll have to get the scoop from you on that later. Glad that you are okay though. Tracy Sally didn't hit. Yes, oh, Tracy, big one. Yeah, actually, I heard right now, is it Pensacola, I think, is being hit this morning. I think I heard something this morning when I was driving. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's Pensacola. So yeah, we need to keep all those people in our prayers for sure. So last week, your all's homework was to continue. Oh, Milton, that is something to celebrate. Woohoo! Awesome. That is so awesome. Oh yeah, Mobile, Alabama. Yes, that was one of them too. Man, yeah, there's a lot going on with that right now. It seems like we just keep having one thing after another, which is why we all need to keep engaging our mindset. And I'm like working very diligently with this. So your all's homework was to listen to the last parts of the tribute to John Maxwell's dad, Melvin Maxwell. If you have not checked any of those out, you definitely should. If you did listen, I would love in the chat to see if you guys, what your thoughts were. Ahas, did you love it? Did you think they were as good as I did? I just absolutely love listening to all of his lessons from his dad, and I am so looking forward. I have not taken a trip since February, and so I'm super looking forward to get to spend time with John in November in Florida, and I'm like counting down the days. So I'll have some really good stuff to share post November because he always gives the very best. So okay, I'm gonna roll through this because I have a lot. I'm reading this book, Help I Work with People, and I am obsessed with this book. I'm all but have highlighted about every other word in the entire book. I'll give it to Chad Veach. His title just makes you want to buy the book anyway, because I don't know any of us that don't work with people somehow, and it's not always the easiest thing. And so I picked out a couple from the beginning of the book that I really wanted to share with you guys, and I'm going to read some of it to you, but I also wanted you to be able to write and take notes too. So the very first one, the first thing that he talks about is it's all about you. And you might think like, oh, but wait, I thought we were talking about the people that I work with, but really it starts with you. It starts with every one of us, because you are the only thing that you can really control in life. Everything else, your circumstances, other people, other events, it's all beyond your control. And so what does it really mean to lead yourself? And so at number one, it's developing self-control. You have to have self-control. He says self-control is your ability to keep yourself, your emotions, your thoughts, your goals, and your motives in check and in balance. Are you going to lead from your mind or from your emotions? your will or your whims, your calling or your comfort. Leading yourself also means you lead by example. Sometimes this is hard to do, but this means you are authentic, you're consistent, you're honest. You walk beside people rather than pushing from behind them. You take them with you rather than sending them out alone. I always think of this, just if you think about in, the war, like the main leaders were the ones in the front. They weren't like back behind their people. They were out in front. It means leading yourself means pursuing personal growth. So you have to be strong to lead other people and to work with other people. You have to be mentally strong. You have to be morally strong. You have to be emotionally strong. And the only way you're going to do that is by continuing to develop your personal growth. So whether you're 18 or 88, you have to constantly remember that your personal growth is so important. And I like what he says in this. No one is born a perfect leader or a perfect person. It's something that you actually grow into. And so the only way that you're going to do that is by developing personal growth, right? Growing into being a better leader and a better person is also about leading yourself and then taking responsibility for who you are. And don't be afraid to face the things that you need to learn, change, or fix. For a lot of people, myself included sometimes, it's hard to think about the things that we aren't the best at, or the things that maybe we need to change or we need to work on or fix even in ourselves. But whatever your limitation is, it's not insurmountable unless you refuse to acknowledge it. And that's one of the things he says in the book. And I love that so much because it's true. Whatever your limitation is, it's not insurmountable. It's not something that you can't overcome. The only way it is if you refuse to acknowledge it. He also says other times, rather than fixing a weakness, you will need to staff your weakness. Meaning if it's something that you just know you are never going to be great at, then you might have to leverage that when you're working with people. And so like he talks in here about, he said his team already knows where he's weak. And so they're eager to fill in his weaknesses with their strengths. And that is a very humbling experience. And then if you can really lead yourself, you're going to inspire more people to follow you, to work with you, to want to be around you, to lean on you. John, he tells a story about John Wesley in the book that I'm not going to tell, but John Wesley founded the Methodist Church actually. And he said, in other words, always remember people are watching you and they will be attracted by your passion, your drive, and your commitment. And if you lose your passion, your drive, or your commitment, then you might see, oh, well, nobody is following me or people don't want to be around me. But when you have that, then that's what leads people to want to be with you. So the second thing in working with people is you are your most important investment. And I can't remember if I shared this story or not, but I wanted to share it again, even if I already have, because I just think it's that good. So LeBron James will undoubtedly be remembered as one of the greatest players in basketball history. His stats are consistently jaw-dropping, despite competing in a sport that is usually dominated by younger players. His manager, Mav Carter, revealed in an interview with NBA reporter Alex Kennedy one of the reasons for LeBron's consistent performance. He spends $1.5 million a year on his body. Let that number sink in for a second. $1.5 million every single year. That includes things like cryotherapy, hyperbaric chambers, exotic leg boots, exercise routines, diets, coaches, and much more. In Kennedy's words, he invested in his body so he can still dominate at 33 years old. LeBron's career earnings were recently estimated at over $1 billion. With that kind of return, spending $1 million or $2 million a year isn't exorbitant. It's actually an investment that pays incredible dividends. So I love that story because sometimes it's easy to forget to invest in ourselves. And one of the points that I put on the PowerPoint that I just think is so true. Some people are naturally gifted. Like we would all say we're naturally gifted in something, right? However, no one is naturally great. Everyone has to work at what they do. Everyone has to invest in themselves, in their craft, in their art, in their game. They have to do the work, right? They have to, actually, this is a really good stat. He shares another story about an athlete, but he says an analysis revealed that 30% of an individual's actual leadership role occupancy or their ability to work with people could be attributed to genetic factors, the remainder to non-shared environmental factors. In other words, it's not traits that they were born with. It's actually things that they've developed into, that they've grown and that they've learned over time. he said that leaders are both born and made, but most of the time they're made. So 75% of the time they're made, right? Which I think that's kind of refreshing to know that, because we can't change what we were born with. So we can change what we want to grow into. So, so there are 4 essential investments, and these are the ones I would write down in order for you to know that you are your most important investment. And these are the things that you want to invest in. Number 1 is you want to invest in community. People keep you grounded and people keep you sane. Like our Wednesday morning mindset is a community, and I absolutely love that. Oh, thank you, Heather, for posting the link. Yes, the link to the book, by the way, if you want to get it on Amazon, is in the chat. So invest in your community. People keep you grounded and sane. And if you are in a leadership role, whether it's in your family or in your job or in your career, whatever it is, don't let leadership isolate you. And that is, I know that not every one of you this is going to speak to, but some of you it will. And so I want to make sure that I share that, because sometimes leadership can isolate you. And like, especially the higher that you move into leadership, you can tend to feel isolated. And oh, really, Milton, the Audible version won't be available. Yeah, this book literally just came out. So I think I ordered it like the second day it was on Amazon. So, okay, so you may have to wait until October to get it on Audible. So don't let leadership isolate you. Find people who are willing to tell you what you need to hear with love and boldness. And that's sometimes scary. 1, it's scary to be that person to tell people. And 2, sometimes it's hard to receive that. The second thing is invest in time off. Build unproductivity into your schedule. My unproductivity backfired this weekend because I don't know if any of you have watched Home Edit on Netflix, but I am addicted and obsessed, and I want to label and clear box categorize everything that I own in my house right now. So I was trying to be unproductive by binging this show, which led to me just wanting to consume this whole entire weekend with organizing my garage to look like Khloe Kardashian's. So that's a whole nother squirrel. But remember that you need to build unproductivity into your schedule. And here's what he says: if you're not intentional about it, if you don't value it enough to put it in your calendar and protect it, you're setting yourself up for a greater loss. Which is so true, because if we say we're going to be unproductive and then we're really not, we're just letting ourselves down. Number 3 is invest in professional development. This is a big one, and it's just always about being learning based, right? So do whatever you can to keep learning. He says the moment you choose to stop learning is the moment that you choose to fail, because it will only be a matter of time before you fall behind the times or others will pass you by. You will never arrive, so make a commitment now to never stop learning. He goes on and shares all of these things ways that he just continues to do that. And then the last one is invest in building a trusted team. So even if this is like a personal team, meaning you may have leverage of someone to clean your house, or you may have someone to take care of your lawn, or you may have a team in your business, or you may have a team because you run a company, whatever that is, as a leader, you need to let their teams do their job after you've built a trusted team. You need them and they need you, and no one wins when one person is trying to do everything solo. So you have to learn how to build a trusted team around you. And that one for me, I think, let me check the chat. Yes, Stephanie, great. Yes, thank you for saying that. Your closest friends are your team as well. I love that, because how many of you know that you have a couple of guy friends or a couple of girlfriends that you feel like are your closest friends, and they truly are like your team, your tribe. And so that is, yeah, that's a really, really great example. Thank you, Stephanie, for saying that. So the next one is find your strengths. And in order for you to work with people and to keep a good mindset, you've got to find your strengths, because influencing is typically about your strengths. So figure out what you are hardwired to be the best at and work as hard as you can at that. And the way that you're going to do that is to identify your gifts. And I'm going to share with you just a really couple of quick ways of how you can do that. So number 1 is ask yourself, what comes naturally to me? And really, actually, this should have been homework too. So I would really encourage you to do this. Like, I've written all inside of here because I've tried to answer these and like think about it when I'm going through it. What comes naturally to you? Did social skills or emotional intelligence seem easy for you? Do you feel like you're creative? Are you constantly tinkering with technology? Are you fascinated by numbers and science? Do you have this innate ability to make people laugh for no reason? Are you great at art? Whatever it is, what comes naturally to you? And then think about, how do you stand out from the crowd among your peers with those things that come natural for you? The second question is, what do other people observe in me? And a long time ago, probably like probably 7 years ago, when I very first, I'm trying to think, I think it was when I moved to Keller Williams, I can't remember. I did this, Linda McKissick took me to this thing, and it was like a unique ability workshop. And before we went there, we had to email, I want to say it was like 12 people, this email that we wanted them to write back about what they observe in us, like the good, the bad, what do they think? Like it was I wish I could find it. I need to go back and find that. I'm sure I still have that in my 40 million emails that I never delete. But it was a really great exercise, because reading what people wrote back, it was humbling, and it was like, okay, like my brother loved me enough. I remember he wrote back to like say all the good things, and like, here's one thing that I think you could work on. Like it's really good feedback. So always ask people what they observe in you. It's been said that fish don't know there's water. It's so much a part of their reality that they can't even see it. A similar dynamic can happen without your gifts and skills. There's so much, with your gifts and skills. There's so much a part of us that sometimes we can't even see them, just like the fish can't even see the water. So what have other people observed in you over the years? What natural traits or skills do people tend to observe in you now? When trusted people in your life notice and affirm your gifts, listen to them, and don't be, you can be humble at the same time, but you need to realize what those are and to listen to those. And then the next one is, what have I learned by trial and error? This is kind of a simple one. He says, learning through trial and error is less about the error and more about the learning. In other words, you're going to fail a lot. But where do you learn the most when you do fail? Where do you grow, change, and try again? Even if no one around you seems to care, you need to think about trials and errors that you've had. And then the fourth one is, what do you actually enjoy? What do you desire to do? What would you do even if you weren't being paid to do it? What do you feel like time flies when you're doing? He says, even when you're focused on doing what you enjoy, you might feel discouraged once in a while. But if it's truly your calling, you should feel disappointed at the thought of even ever giving it up. That's something like really to let sink in. Something deep inside you will be drawn toward the challenge and the potential, and you'll push through any resistance that you accomplish, that comes in your way to accomplish it. Enjoyment is often an indicator of talent. And then the last one is, what works for you? And that's just really a simple one. Like, if you have clear success in an area, you feel the wind at your back. What really works for you? What are things that are in your wheelhouse that just work for you? And then the next part of this, how am I doing on time? Oh, I'm doing good. Do you guys like this? I love this. Okay, cool. Okay. So the next part of this is, I think I can. And here's what he says. You have to really, truly believe that you can do something, when you have to love yourself and lead yourself in order to work with people, or to just continue to grow your mindset. This was a really great quote. Actually, I don't have this on the slide, but he said, when you lose your capacity to care what other people think, you've lost your ability to connect. But when you're defined by it, you've lost your ability to be vulnerable. And so we can't necessarily completely be overwhelmed with what people think. At the same time, we kind of can't say, well, we just don't care at all, right? Because then we're not being vulnerable. So there's a story in the book about Bobby Jones. He's an influential attorney and golfer who helped actually found the Augusta Golf Club and the Masters tournament. I didn't know this. He said, competitive sports are played mainly on a 5.5-inch court, the space between your ears. And I thought, man, that is so true. How true is that? He talks about, he has an autobiography called Open, and where Andre Agassi describes the mental focus. And this is just about playing tennis. And I thought, this is so good. He said, I actually tabbed this to share with Adam because he's a big tennis player. Tennis is the sport in which you talk to yourself. No athletes talk to themselves like tennis players. In tennis, you're on an island. Of all the games men and women play, tennis is the closest to solitary confinement, which inevitably leads to self-talk. And for me, the self-talk starts here in the afternoon shower. This is when I begin to say things to myself, crazy things, over and over and over until I believe them. But he shares that because he said until he really understood the power of self-talk, he wasn't as successful, but he knows that it's in his mind, right? That's where it all starts. Brene Brown talks a lot about this, and he quotes her in the book. You have influence, you have something to say, something to give, something to contribute. Your I ams need to be louder than your I am nots. I am wanted, I am valuable, I am here for a reason. And then there's a guy named Dr. Shad Helmstetter, I think is how you say his name. And he actually wrote the book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I have not read that book. I have no clue if it's good, but I loved what he said in here. You will become what you think about most. Your successes or failure or anything, large or small, will depend on your programming. What you accept from others and what you say when you talk to yourself. The brain simply believes what you tell it the most, which is crazy, right? And what you tell it about you, it will create. It has no choice. That's just how the brain operates. So there are 5 essentials to just all of these beliefs. And I really, really like these. Actually, these have been my affirmations. The first one is more people are for me than against me. That is such a great one to say to yourself every single day. More people are for me than against me. More people are on your side. More people want you to succeed. More people believe in you and trust in you. Don't let a few critics and naysayers erase from your mind all the good that is happening. And I don't know about you guys, but some days that's easier said than done. And so say your affirmation of more people are for me than against me. The second one is people like me. He said, I once heard someone say, I've decided to believe that everyone likes me until they tell me otherwise. It's a wise philosophy, I think. And I laughed when I read that because I just think that's a great thing to think about. The third one is I have nothing to prove. Believing you have nothing to prove stems from the assurance that whether you succeed or you fail, your value as a person remains unchanged. He said, you should do your work as well as you can, of course, for multiple and obvious reasons, but your work is not a verdict about your worth. And that sometimes for all of you workaholics, that is a good one too. The fourth affirmation is things are better with me, not without me. You have something to offer and you add value wherever you go. I actually say that a lot in the morning. I have something to offer, or I have something to offer and I add value to everyone that comes in my path. And I really strive to do that. He said, remind yourself how much you matter to those around you. Meanwhile, be intentional about adding value to people and situations as you are able. And then the last one is I have influence. And that's a big one, especially with everything we have kind of going on right now. People learn from you, listen to you, and follow you. You are making a difference in their lives. And so I think we have to really think that we can. And then here's the last part of this. And this is what I really, really want to be your homework. I got a ton out of this. I'm not going to lie. It was very eye-opening. I actually kind of discussed a little bit of this with Adam. And so here, there's a story about Warren Buffett. I want to read this to you really fast. Until the 2020 COVID-19 outbreak, the global financial crisis of 2007-2008 was considered to many to be the worst economic period since the Great Depression. It began in the United States with bursting of the subprime mortgage bubble, part of the banking sector that focuses on high-risk loans. Within a few months, the economic effects had spread into other markets. Many people lost their savings, their livelihoods along their way, their hopes for the future. At the height of the crisis, Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in the world, wrote an opinion piece in the New York Times. He started by stating the obvious. The financial world is a mess, both the United States and abroad. But what he wrote next was a surprise. So I've been buying American stocks. And he says in here, so people asked him, why buy stocks when the future is so uncertain? And here's what he said. Why? A simple rule dictates my buying. Be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. And most certainly, fear is now widespread. And I feel like this is kind of true right now, to be very honest. It's widespread, gripping even seasoned investors. To be sure, investors are right to be wary of highly leveraged entities or businesses in weak and competitive position. But fears regarding the long-term prosperity of the nation's many sound companies make no sense whatsoever. These businesses will indeed suffer earning hiccups, as they always have, but most major companies will be setting new profit records 5, 10, 20 years from now. He said, let me be clear and make one point. I can't predict the short-term movements of the stock market. I haven't the faintest idea as to whether stocks will be higher or lower a month or a year from now. What is likely, however, is that the market will move higher, perhaps substantially so. well before either sentiment or the economy turns up. So if you wait for the robin, spring will be over. And I was like, man, that is so good. So here's what he says about being an emotionally healthy leader. You can't let your emotions dictate your actions. And that can be hard to do sometimes. And so here's what he says that you have to do with that. You have to identify and lead your emotions. So in order to control your emotions, you first have to identify them, and then you have to be intentional about that and put your energy into identifying what they are. And here's how you're going to do that. And you're going to answer these 3 questions. And I would highly encourage you to do this as your homework. It was one of the best exercises I've done in a really long time. The first one is, what is my go-to dysfunction? And he said, put in another way, when you lose it, what does it look like? And I just thought that was like funny. It made me laugh. He said, if you're not sure what yours is, just ask your spouse, your friends, or the people that work with you every day, and they can probably tell you. He said, how do you start to break down under pressure? What does destructive behavior look like? He said, these might sound like depressing questions, but identifying your tendencies under pressure is actually a positive and wise thing to do. And it keeps you proactive. And so here were some examples. He said, do you shut down? Do you lash out? Do you blow up? Do you give up? Do you look for an escape, maybe through self-destructive behavior, or maybe you drink, or I don't know. Do you make rash decisions? Do you run away? Do you get depressed? Do you have panic attacks? This is the best one. Or do you binge watch entire seasons of reality shows while eating deep fried Oreos and posting depressing memes on social media? I think that is so funny. And so honestly, I had to really think deep about this. And I looked at Adam and I said, what, when I lose it, what does that look like? And he said, do you really want to know? I said, yes, tell me. But it's funny when you think about it, because actually with personal stuff, I shut down instead of blow up or anything. I'm just over it, and I just shut down, and I'm I don't even want to talk about it. But I think everybody's different. And I'd never even really thought about that. Too many Starbucks lattes. Yes, that's a really good one. I never really thought about it until I started to go through these questions. The second thing is, what triggers my emotional dysfunction? And he encourages you to make a little list. I don't know if you can see this, but I made a list in mine. What circumstances or factors turn you toward the dark side? And that is a funny one too. And I wrote down my main ones. And it's funny, once I had a hard time writing down I wrote down 2, and then I had a hard time. And then after I got past 4, I was like, oh, and this, and this, and this, and this. And so I kept going. But I wrote down some of mine just in case you guys are needing things to trigger your mind. Where ungrateful people really are a trigger for me. Disingenuine or inauthentic people, I just don't relate. And so that's not really a trigger, but I just don't. Disrespect to the people around me that I love or care for, or that I'm protective of, is a really big trigger for me, a massive trigger. I'm a little triggered when I don't have control and poor decisions are made. If I had control of the decision, or if I didn't have control and a decision was made that I didn't agree with, I sometimes can spiral a little bit. Disloyalty, and when my values are not aligned, I tend to be triggered a little bit. And then drama. I don't really like drama. I'm kind of triggered by drama. So those are some of mine, but I would highly encourage you to answer that for yourself, because it's kind of a great exercise. And then lastly, what are some practical ways that I can lead my emotions? And what he means by that is, how can you stay ahead of your emotions? How can you lead yourself so that you are staying ahead of that? And so he said, to the last part, it was, learn to know, understand, and lead your emotions through life's ups and downs. And when you do that, you'll be able to really understand yourself better and work with other people. So man, I was right on time. I hope you guys loved that. I'm obsessed with this book. Oh yeah, Victims. Oh, Stephanie, that's actually one I should have written down on my list that I didn't. So see, once you get rolling on them, you can think of a 10. Victims are definitely one. I can't believe I didn't think of that. So what I would love for you to do as homework is take that last slide. We'll post it in the closed Facebook group, and just journal and answer some of those questions, and spend time doing that, because it's really great. I actually heard Tim Ferriss yesterday when we were watching him talk about the inner and outer, and I was kind of just not into it when he was saying it, but then I re-listened to it last night, and I don't feel like we spend enough time on our inner stuff answering questions like this. So highly encourage you to do that. We'll post them. Thanks for being on. And yeah, that's all I got. Whew, I feel like I talked really fast. Hopefully that was helpful. Hey, Amy. All right, you guys have a great rest of your week. And by the way, all of you that have ordered this book, oh my gosh, I've had like 1 million people tell me that they got this daily reader. So if you don't have it, you should totally get it. And we'll post it in the Facebook group too. Okay. Oh, Rochelle, I know I saw you got it. I'm so glad. Okay, have a great week. See you guys.